Howdy. What's happening, everybody? It's another Wise Out Paint Wednesday with your host, Mark DeReamer of Refurbished Gentlemen. That's me. What up? What's going on, everybody? Oh, it's a cold day here in Illinois. We left for the weekend, came back, and apparently winter decided to hit Illinois. But today, we're going to talk about primer. And my why for Wise Owl, my swag on again today, is primer. Now, I want to start this by saying primer is not 100% necessary for their chalk synthesis line. Now, I'll preface that with it's a best practice to prime before you paint, but it's not necessary, 100% necessary. So, I put that out there, hey, I'm using primer last night, and had, a comment about another paint line that was like, hey, ours doesn't need primer. Well, yes and no, okay? I'll look at what is the best practice, right? So chalk style paints are made specifically to adhere to most things without all the extra prep. That's kind of what the spiel is, to make it easier for just everyday Joe Schmo to use, right? But does that mean you don't ever prime? And for me, my best practice is always scuff, clean, rinse, prime, then paint. That's just my best practice. Now, do I always prime? No. If I feel like it's a surface where it got clean enough and I'm using the chalk synthesis line of Wise Owl, I'll paint without priming. So just wanted to start off by saying that. This video will be about my why with Wise Owl and why the primers are the best that I've tried and used. But I wanted to start off by saying that it's not always necessary. And the only time it will be necessary with a Wise Owl paint is when you use the 1 Hour Enamel, because the enamel is not a chalk style paint. It's not made to adhere to anything. Although it's an amazing paint, that's not what it was made for. It's a different kind of two totally separate things altogether. So chalk style paints are made to adhere to most surfaces, not necessarily needed to have primer. The 1 Hour Enamel is not made to adhere to all surfaces, so it will need a primer. So definitely use it for a 1 Hour Enamel. Not 100% necessary for the chalk synthesis line. Now, again, we fall back to the best practice. What is the best practice when you're painting a piece? To ensure its longevity, to ensure the adherence, to ensure no bleed through or stain blocking and all that kind of good stuff. Scuff, clean, rinse, prime. That's how I do it. So, and that's probably 90% of the pieces that I do. That's how I do it. So that's totally up to you when you're using a chalk style paint, like their chalk synthesis line of paints, but totally up to you. But if you do decide to use Refurbished Gentlemen's best practices, you'll want a great primer, right? And I know there's a lot out there. It's a lot of confusion of like, what's the best, what's not the best. Do I use old? Do I use water-based? Do I use this, that, and the other thing? For me, a lot of what I use, well, I'd say 99% of what I use is water-based. So I'd like to stick within that window of products because the long and short of it is it's healthier, one, which if you follow Wise Owl, the way they make their stuff, that's another why day though. We'll get to that, is about health and how their products are made. But it's also about cleanup. So we're talking about ease of use of products. It's also comes down to, like, are my brushes going to be tore up afterwards? We spend, good money on our brushes to make sure we have good ones. We want to make sure we can clean them up after and have it not be a non-issue. And a lot of the water-based products will allow you to do that. So that's where it comes down to their primers. So one of my whys is their primer is amazing. And the two big things you're looking for in a primer, and if you can find them both in one product, then you got, pretty money product. and that is stain blocking and adhesion. And some companies make one for each kind, so you have to use adhesion for this one and then stain blocking for this one, but the one that's for adhesion doesn't have stain blocking. So it's like, almost like, hey, well, which one do I use? Do I use them in combination of each other? Well, with Wise-Owl's primer, you're going to get both. And I can tell you through extensive testing, and I put the white primer through the ringer on a really, really deep red mahogany piece that I did, about a year ago. And it did block all of that red. And I was very impressed. I actually did a whole video the day after because I was just amazed by how well it worked, because even me, I'm still, back then I was in a very much of a testing stage of some of this new stuff. Wise-Owl came out with primer. It was fairly new. I think Karen waited until she had, a really great product to put out before she decided to put out a primer. So when she did, of course, went through all the things and it worked amazingly well for stain blocking. So that was my first test. So I went through all that. And then next thing was adhesion. Like, how is it going to work if I have a slick surface, let's say hardware, as an example. I want to paint on some hardware. I've cleaned it. I've done all the scuffing, done all the things I needed to do, but I'm wanting to paint it along with my finish and the paint is just not adhering. And I've had this happen before. So I used their primer over the hardware and it worked like a charm. And then that's when the epiphany was, okay, if I want to ensure 100%, like especially if I'm doing custom work for my clients, or if I'm painting and selling a piece like I'm doing with Restore Decor, I send them pieces up there, I want to make sure that this piece and its finish is going to have a long life, right? I spend a lot of time on it. The proper prep is key, and it all starts with those first initial steps. So I want to make sure I have a good bond to the surface, and sometimes you get some of these slick wood style things or hardware, different kind of stuff, where you just want to make sure for sure that when you go all these layers of paint over top of this slick surface, that it's not going anywhere. And I guess that was my other thing, because I had issues with other paint lines where I didn't use a primer. I did all the proper prep, scuffed, cleaned, rinsed, did all that stuff, got through 2 layers of paint, and it started peeling up. Man, I was so frustrated. So again, falling back to the best practice would be to prime regardless. But that's totally up to you guys. Again, chalk style paints are not necessarily made to need a primer, but it is a best practice. So let's put it like that. Okay. So for me, I put it through Wise-Owl's primer through the tests of the stain blocking, which worked amazingly well. And then I put it through the adherence test. And I did it through a bunch of different things. The IKEA style, plasticky wood stuff. I've done it with all different kinds. I mean, every different kind you can possibly imagine, to include hardware, which we all know, you might do a whole finish of a piece and want to include the hardware in that finish. So you just prime right over the whole thing. So if you leave the hardware on, you prime it just like you do all the rest of it, right? So put them through test of both. Then you get into the colors. Now that's a whole nother ball of wax. Well, what happens if I want to distress mark if a company only has white? Well, you want a clear primer, right? And what happens if I want to paint white, but I don't want to have to paint 19 layers of Snow Owl? Well, they got a white. And now, brand new, I'd say within the last few months, they have a gray. And then you're like, okay, well, we got white and clear, what do we need gray for? So gray would be your red hues, your warmer hued colors, to allow that color to shine and have whatever's underneath it get blocked really, really well. And or using gray colors. Like I could see the way this gray is, which I haven't actually done a piece with it yet, played with it, tested it, but I could see it really be great underneath a gray if you had, like, let's say a yellowish wood or a really orange wood, and you wanted to put some primer on, hit it with the gray, and then go with your gray paint afterwards. So again, we're gonna have So we got gray, which looks like this, right? And then white, which looks like this. And the clear, which is the tricky one, and I've done a little time-lapse video on this one. It looks milky, so don't get freaked out. I promise you, it will be clear when it dries. And I'm actually looking at the pieces in front of me that I primed last night. It was that orange wood bed, and it's complete. You would never know I primed it, looking at it right now. And I used the clear right here. So don't freak out. But when you get all of these primers with the chemicals and all that different kind of stuff, it's gonna settle to the bottom. So I've seen this on a lot of groups. You know, oh, I got this can and the top's this clear liquid and the bottom's all chunky. Stir, 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 and stir some more. Don't shake. Not shaken, not stirred. Stirred, not shaken. Stir, because all the stuff, and I'm not gonna act like I'm smart enough to tell you what all that stuff is, but I know it separates over time as it sits. So you just gotta stir and stir and stir. And I can tell you the gray and how pretty, like silky smooth that is. It was not like that 5 minutes ago when I opened it. You have to stir it to get it to that point. So, and I always recommend stirring no matter what, whether it's paint or primer anyway, because that's what happens with time. Stuff sits, settles, so stir. So, you have 3 different kinds to choose from as well. Another why Zol? Because they have a primer that's not only for adhesion, it has stain blocking, but it also has 3 separate colors for whatever situation you might have. Like for this bed, I am probably going to distress it, so I really wanted to go clear, so when I distress, I can bring back a little bit of the wood and not have to worry about the white or the gray peeking through. So that's that. So now, like, how do you apply it? Is it thick? Is it thin? I got another question about that last night. So some primers are really, really, really thick, like a paint, where you paint it on and you got to worry about brush strokes and everything. I can tell you Zol's primer is not like that, okay? You're gonna paint on thin coats and you're not even gonna see brush strokes. I mean, the only thing you're gonna see if you see brush strokes at all is, like, let's say you do a thin coat of white over a darker wood. It's obviously gonna have some spots where because you're gonna do a thin coat, it's not gonna be complete coverage until the second coat, right? So you're gonna see through it, but it's not gonna be a textured brush stroke that you're gonna feel, because this is thick enough, but not so thick that it takes on that same kind of consistency of paint would. So that's what's great about it. And like I said, I'm looking at this bed right now, and you can't even tell that I did anything to it. I used the clear, went on milky, dried clear. There's no brush strokes, there's no nothing, and nothing that's gonna affect what I'm gonna do after with my finish. So if I want a nice smooth finish, you don't have to worry about that as long as you do 2 thin coats. And that gets to the whole coating thing. This is a big thing. Okay, so if you take anything from this video, when you use Zol's primer, you must do 2 coats, okay? And that's for complete coverage, especially when you're using clear, because it will start drying clear and you won't see where you might have missed a spot. So 2 coats, at least 2 hours apart. I would say a little bit longer. I'd probably go 4 hours just to ensure, depending on your humidity of your room and all that stuff, that it's dry, completely dry. Do your second coat. And then this is the part you take from this video. Of all the things that you take from this video, wait at least a day to paint. Please, please, please. Wait at least 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, depending on if you have that much time. Let the primer dry completely and do its job. Because ultimately, it's gonna do some stuff chemically as it dries and cures over that 24 to 48 hour period. That's gonna both make adherence, like serious, hardcore adherence, and do the stain blocking for you. So if you start jumping ahead of that timetable, you're getting into where, it's a water-based thing, you're adding another water-based thing, or am I reactivating it and making it where it's not doing its job? So you definitely want to wait at least 24 hours before you apply paint over top of any one of the primers. Okay, makes sense? Yes, good, awesome. And then it goes to what I'm playing with my hand. So what kind of brush would you use for primer? I love the F50 Klingon brush. And it's just because, you know, it's flat. You're going to get on the areas really, really quick, lay it down. You're not needing to really make it look too specifically, you know, any way, shape, or form. You're just basically getting it on. And when I'm doing anything, it's just like, hey, I want to get it on really quick, lay it on, you know, pull it down in whatever strokes or however I want to do it. I like using a flat brush. And the F50 is usually my go-to for any priming. I actually have, I think, 3 of them over there, and 2 of them are in water right now because they're the ones I've been using for the desk and the bed. So I definitely would use this brush for priming primarily. So, but that was pretty much it. I wanted to go over priming just because I posted that thing last night and then I had some questions. I was like, well, what a perfect Why's All Wednesday for today to talk about another why. And the primer, again, falling back to what I said at the beginning, if you're just hopping on, it's a best practice thing. It's not 100% necessary with their chalk synthesis line. It is 100% necessary with their 1 Hour Enamel. And it's just because of the chemical makeup of how it's made. Chalk synthesis line is made to adhere to most surfaces, and the 1 Hour Enamel is not. So you want to make sure. But for me, my best practice and how I do it 90% of the time is scuff, clean, rinse, prime, and then paint. So if you choose to do that and you're looking for a great primer, Why's All's got you covered. And again, it'll take care of adhesion, stain blocking. They've got 3 different colors. Goes on smooth, silky smooth like their paint. Thin enough where it's not leaving brush strokes, but thick enough where it's doing the job with 2 coats, and it goes a super long way. So because you're doing those thin coats, it'll go a long way and last you a while. So, and then the big thing, make sure you wait 24 to 48 hours after you're done before you apply paint over top of the primer. And that's it. That's just another little quick Why's All Wednesday. Does anybody have any questions? Who's on here? I see Laura, Jody. What's up, y'all? But that's it. Yeah. I posted, I do my little sneak peeks of what I'm up to, and a couple people had questions, and I just thought, hey, that'd be a perfect little, segue into my Why's All Wednesday today. And then, of course, if you catch this on replay, make sure you say hi, and if you have any questions pertaining to primer that I didn't catch, didn't put in here, don't hesitate to shoot me a little question in here or PM me or whatever. And as always, thanks for support. Again, purchasing through the affiliate link and using my discount code helps me continue putting more content out. The office/video area is almost done. I'm waiting on one sign to finish that up, and I think I may start doing instructional videos in here to start because it's taking a little longer than I was hoping to get done, so I can start putting some stuff out. So, but again, thanks for everybody. It's been an awesome month so far. With that, seen a lot of people ask those questions about it, and I appreciate it. I used the gray primer under Madrid. It's pretty awesome. Yep, definitely. So any other questions? Again, just, drop me a comment in here. Shoot me a private message if you want. Karen, I'm wearing my swag again today. All right, I'm going to hop off here. I got to go get Maddie from school. Hope everybody has a blessed day. And as always, happy painting.